Good morning, Olivia. I have the privilege to have this amazing woman on my podcast this morning. Her name is Olivia Blain. Um, I'm going to ask her to introduce herself so that she can tell you guys all about her. But I know she's a school counselor for K-8 level by profession, but she's a foodie. I love having foodies on my podcast and talking to them about the catalyst of connection and what it brings to your soul and everything. So good morning, Olivia, and welcome. Can you please tell us all about yourself?
Hey, good morning. Thank you. I'm happy to be on this program. Yes, so like you said, I am a school counselor by profession. I'm actually an entrepreneur as well, and I used to say foodie, but I really find it more like I'm a food scientist because I like to experiment with things, mix things up. Sometimes when I'm trying a recipe and I don't have something that it calls for, I'll substitute it with something else and it turns out just as good. Most of the times, I've had a few times where it hasn't, but um, yeah, I really love talking about food, like eating good food too, and just the connection of like how eating a nice meal, like really nourishing meal too, not just like junk all the time, but like eating really good food that's good for you and it has really good taste and flavor. Because that's what I usually do with my whenever I cook something, I always add seasonings like rosemary or things like that because I like the flavor to a lot of things.
Well, me being in the food industry and making a lot of food, I'm a French fine dining chef, as my people know. And it's
Mhm.
exciting for me to just talk to people about how they see food, how they love food, how they make food. And you were talking about, a lot of things, but where did you grow up and how was your relationship and your parents' relationship with food as you were growing up?
Well, I grew up on the Menominee Reservation, um, part, good portion of my life in Neobit, Wisconsin, and the other half in Lake Kashina. And so my mom's relationship with food, it's really interesting because I've told many people stories about that, how when I was a kid, I was just one of the my because my mom told me this when I was in Head Start. I was one of those. I feel like I've always been an outlier, just not because I try hard to be, but just because I am. Like because my mom told me that, like in the Head Start class, even like the kids would be like, "Oh, I don't like that, ew," and they'd be like, "Oh, let's give it to her and she'd eat it." And I kind of was embarrassed, but I don't know. I owned it after a while. I'm like, "Yeah, that's right," and I did that for a good portion of my life, like just stuff that my mom made because my mom was a single mom. She had me and my sister, and she was on like government subsidies, and so she like had to stretch money, and she had to make some meals that really weren't appealing that I just ate because it was like, well, either you're gonna eat that or you're gonna go to bed hungry. And so after a while I just ate it, but my taste changed in high school when I got to sample foods from other places. And then I just like that really began this big journey for me to like want to try things because I took French in high school. And I took all 4 years in high school. We always, when we go on these trips, she'd always take us to different restaurants and try different things like Middle Eastern food and, things like that. And at first I was like, oh, I don't know. But then I tried and I'm like, wow, this is good. So it was just like eye opening. And ever since then, I just always had this taste for like, oh, somebody would be like, oh, try this new dish. Okay. So I'll try it. That's like my mindset of whenever I go somewhere I get invited somewhere, I'll take a little bit of everything to see what I like.
Oh, that's amazing. That's the way to eat food, is to experiment and taste everything. And I think people get so fixated on just one thing. I just want to eat one thing. I'm a fusion food person. And so for me, I want to ask you, as we grow up, and I heard you say, you had to stretch the food and there was a lot of food you didn't like. But if you have to think back, what was your comfort food as you were growing up? The one thing that made you feel
Um,
warm, fuzzy on the inside when you were getting it, maybe once in a blue moon.
hmm, that's an interesting question because my mom didn't really go too far out in different meals when things, and it was a lot of like things that were affordable, like like pea soup with the ham hocks and stuff like that in there, like the food that's really affordable, or like spam and stuff like that. I don't really care for that now, but um I did I did really like it whenever like we'd have I used to, because like a lot of indigenous people like to eat fry bread. Like I did like fry bread a lot, but after as I grew up and I realized how bad it was for us, I really tapered off from eating that. And so I eat that from one time to time, but yeah, I'm just like, I don't know. That used to be my go-to. Like, oh, it was always a nice little thing whenever we'd have like tacos with the fry bread.
Well, that's your comfort food. It's mine is coming from my grandma. I grew up in South Africa in the wine country on the farm. So it's a different life and a different lifestyle, and different tastes that you grew up with. But I love food. Any version of food is great for me, and there's bad food and good food, but I'm a foodie and I believe in going for all the good food. So, what is your favorite ingredient to cook with? Out of all your ingredients, and I
Olive
know
oil.
you say you're into food science per se, because you like to mix and match. But there's always one ingredient that we always go back to, and I want to know, what is your go back favorite ingredient in life?
Well, actually, I feel like too, because I found a way. Like I have a giant thing of olive oil because I use pretty much olive oil with everything, anything, anytime I can mix it in there, like really good olive oil. And I like rosemary a lot. I find a way to add like rosemary to things. That's a really good seasoning, really
Rosemary,
good spice.
do you do a lot of fresh rosemary? Do you prefer fresh herbs over dried herbs?
Yes,
And why? Why do you think
yes.
it's so much better?
I like the, you know, because I've tasted it with like the dry, like I think I started out with the dried rosemary and would put like dried rosemary. It was okay, but like one time I made this like lemon pepper chicken and I threw rosemary on top of it and it was fresh rosemary. And I don't know, I was just like, wow, this is like the best chicken I ever had. Oh my gosh. I was just like, like seeing fireworks, just like, this is amazing. So yeah, I really like fresh. There really is a distinct difference to me in my taste when I have like when I use fresh mint versus like dried or something like that. I really prefer using fresh herbs and ingredients.
It's true though. You can taste the difference as your taste buds develops when you're cooking a lot and tasting a lot. It is. I'm a minimalist. I believe in using salt, pepper, and fresh herbs, whatever is around. I am not one to mix in a lot of things. I think that flavors, the natural flavors of everything that needs to come through by using um, less that makes more. And I would like to know what you think about that.
I'm like the opposite. I have a lot of flavors and things. My husband says that a lot. He's like, "Yeah, but then you can't taste something." I think that the way when you combine different flavors, it's like a symphony and it all just musically comes together. And when you're eating it, you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is just so good. This tastes really good." And it makes you feel good all over. like I don't know. I like that. So whatever I make, and I've made like food for my students because they're always eating chips and stuff like that. Like when I worked in high school, as a assistant, and then I was in high school, and I'd always make extra food and I'd take some to my kids and they'd just be like, "Oh my God, this is so good. I love it." And they'd eat it even though it wasn't nothing, over like what they were used to eating, over processed stuff and things like that. They'd just always be like, "Hey, what did you bring today?" Like every day when I came in, because sometimes I didn't have time to do that, bring them something, but yeah, they'd always be like, "What do you got for us today?"
It warms your heart when people love your food, doesn't it? It brings so much joy,
Oh,
when I do events and
yeah.
high-end events, a lot of corporate events and stuff like that. And when your feedback comes back and people get so much joy out of just eating something that you've made, it makes it worthwhile every moment you've spent developing, making, or enjoying
Mhm.
that food. So, Olivia, I know for a fact that you like to play around with your food. And you talked about, a grilled ham and cheese sandwich and what you've added on it and everything like that. Tell us a little bit more about experiences you've had, bad and good ones, where you put tastes together and what you ended up with.
One of the ones that didn't work out as well for me. So I don't know if you've ever heard of this place called Original Pancake. I don't know how many there are. So they have these tropical pancakes that they do, and this tropical sauce that they call it, or I forget what it, like tropical syrup or something. And I don't know, I was just sometimes I just like to make my own stuff because I really am about like controlling the ingredients. I really don't like to eat out as much because there's way too much salt and things, and then there's like things that I don't like in there. So I get these things like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna make this. So I decided one day to try to make my own. I told my husband, I said, we're gonna have some of those tropical pancakes and some of that syrup, and the pancakes turned out okay. Oh man, I made some pumpkin pancakes that were a disaster one time. That just reminded me of that. But the sauce, the tropical sauce was just really watery. It didn't I just couldn't get it to work out. But I don't know. It still kind of tasted good, so we ate it anyway. And I was like, I wonder, because I try to think like, okay, what didn't go right? How can I do it better next time? So I don't know. I think I'm gonna try some other thickening agents and stuff like that. Because I talked to other people that cook and stuff like that, and get advice, and I don't know, just talk about that. But because yeah, when I made some pumpkin pancakes once, and they were just so gooey and runny, they didn't cook all the way. That was a disaster. I tried to make my own pumpkin pancakes. I still don't know what I did, how I messed that up. I'm still trying to figure that out. But I don't know. I've messed things up like that where I didn't do that. I think maybe because I used the whole can of pumpkin. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I should only use like half. But recently, yeah. So I don't know. Like I like grilled cheese, but I'm not really. I don't know. Like I said, I like to add flavor and like taste to things. So I just got this notion one day. I told my husband, I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna make us these grilled cheese sandwiches, and it's I told him that it's not gonna be like average grilled cheese. He's like, oh, okay, because he's pretty much too. He's a foodie just as much as I'm. Like, I'll be like, oh, let's go try this new place, or let's try this, and he's like, okay, he's willing to give it a try. So that works out well. But so I took some sourdough bread. I didn't have any butter, so of course my olive oil, I kind of like soaked it in the olive oil so that it would fry. But I put that off, that good ham, like off the bone ham, on there, and then I took some brie cheese, some slices of brie cheese, put it on there, grilled it up and like warmed it. And after it was grilled, I buttered pear jam on it. Put some pear jam on it, and I was like, okay, here. Oh, and I made potato wedges. I make my own potato wedges because I found out how easy it is to make potato wedges. And of course, I sprinkle
Amazing.
some rosemary on the potato wedge. And I was like, what do you think? And he was like, oh, these are good. I was like, yeah. I took a bite and I was like, oh man, this is the best grilled cheese sandwich I ever had. I like this. And he was like, yeah, these are good. We got to do them again.
It is. It's fun to play around, and it's fun to take different ingredients and different cooking styles and fuse it into something different, and that's how culinary world explodes and develops because of fusion foods. Now, if you had to pick two things or two fusion foods, say you take Japanese sushi or Chinese sushi or whatever you want to do, and you put it with Italian food, what would you pick? Because I can't see those two working together, but I mean, if you can take the two oddest type of food and try and fuse it, what would be your take on that?
That's an interesting challenge.
So this is a challenge you'll need to have to take out, because I'll have to have you back and ask you the question, how did it go?
Because I of that, like, what would be no, and you know what? My brain is always thinking of ways to mesh things to see how I can make them taste good. Like have a little taste, like, oh, you know what? It's lacking this, or it's lacking that. I could use, or maybe a little less of this, but
What to
yeah, no,
take,
that's interesting to see.
take two different countries that you think you would like to try and fuse together.
Hmm. Like soon as you said that, my brain started thinking like, okay, like sushi, how could I do that? I really like um I don't, I wonder how I don't know how you make those, but I'd be willing to give it a try. Have you ever had those? I forget what they're called. It's a Vietnamese dish, where, like how, egg roll, like kind of the thought
Spring
of like egg
rolls,
rolls, but
fresh
only it's
spring
in like a
rolls,
paper. It's clear, like you can
a
see it.
fresh
And
spring
then there's
roll.
shrimp in there. I think that's what it is. Yeah, I don't know why, but I hope, yeah, I hope so, because it's like escaping me right now, but it's really good. It has like lettuce, shrimp, and then there's I think sliced carrots, like really grated carrots or something, look like almost like shoestring like carrots, and then you dip it in this peanut sauce. I'm thinking of like take it. That would be interesting to take like one of those kind of rolls and make like a sushi roll or something out of that to see how that tastes with that peanut sauce that goes with it that you dip it in. That would be
Yeah,
interesting to try to
that,
get.
that's a way to go. So I
Mhm.
know you love to watch cooking shows. So tell me,
I
what are
do.
your favorite cooking shows that you will watch and go and try in the kitchen?
I draw a lot of inspiration because from I usually watch Chopped because I love that how they just get these baskets and it's just the stuff that you're like when you think like, whoa, how is that even gonna go together, and see how people um make that into a dish, or with like either guys grocery games or the diners, drive-ins and dives, like just watching those. I think that's how I'm good at like meshing things to see like, oh, you know what, this peanut sauce with this, I bet that would taste good, we should try it. And I'll think about that, like, yeah, because I really like to vary up my meals. I don't like to just, I'm not okay with just like, it's Tuesday, it's pizza day, it's Wednesday, it's hamburger day, or like to stay stuck in a rut like that. I really like to be mixing it up. Sometimes I do like to say like, oh, like bison is one of my favorite meats to use. I love bison, like ground bison, bison burgers, and just like use bison instead of hamburger. Um, so I do eat a lot of bison burgers. I could do that a lot before I get tired of it. But yeah, I don't know. I like to think about that in my mind, like, oh, you know what? I wonder if this pair is good. And if it doesn't, well, I tried it, see how it worked out.
Well, so that sounds pretty awesome. I mean, bison is a lean, good meat to eat. I agree with you, before a fatty beef. So if you had to put together a meal for your husband, say a Valentine's meal, and it's a three-course meal, and you want to do like very fancy, What will you pick for your three-course meal? How would you put it together?
Once I made us a nice little salad. Like I had some mixed greens with the like dandelion greens and the spinach and like a bunch of different green mixed greens in there. I like those prepackaged greens. So like and then put like some fruit pieces in there, some pear because I had a salad some similar to that somewhere. And oddly enough, when I thought about that when I ordered it, I was like, I don't know, like some pear in there and some cheese. I don't know how that's gonna work out well, but I don't know. The salad came together and I made it like some kind of like raspberry vinaigrette dressing to go on there, and it turned out really, really good, I think. I mean, he didn't complain. He didn't say like, "Oh, I don't like it." He ate it. And then we made spaghetti, and instead of like regular noodles, I used the I forget where they like Bonanza or something like that. They're the chickpea noodles, or they make them with chickpeas
Yes.
instead of like the regular noodles. And then I made like bison. We took meatball, like the ground bison, and like mashed it up like that to make them into meatballs. And we had like a spaghetti that way with some garlic bread and uh, I didn't make any dessert, but so I made a two-course meal. But I don't know. I just was like, yeah, let's do that. And he was like, okay. So he went to the store and got that stuff for me, and I do
If
it
you had to
together.
add a dessert, what would you add?
You said what?
If you had to add a dessert, what would you add?
Um, that's something that I'm a little weak at when it comes to. That's my sister's strong suit. My sister is an amazing baker. She makes all kinds of different breads and she sells at like farmers markets. And I'm like, you need to get this stuff in the store. You like need to get your stuff out there. And she has a passion for it. And I keep saying, like, yeah, look, you could go sell your stuff here, put your stuff there. And she's like, oh yeah, but I don't know. I don't know. I think she might be a little afraid, but whatever. So all I can do is just kind of keep reminding her, like, hey, you should do this. It'll be a good idea. But until it takes off in her mind, I don't think anything's gonna go. But yeah, my sister can make some really good desserts. I'd have to lean on her to say like, hey, you know what? Can you make that? Because I threw out some challenges to her when we were talking about desserts. I was like, hey, maybe you could make your own Oreo cookies. Give it a try once. See if you could do that without all that stuff that's in there, the preservatives and that. She's like, yeah, maybe I would. And I feel like she'd be one that would take on the challenge to try to actually make Oreo cookies or something like that if I told her. Because I try to give her suggestions too for when she makes desserts to sell and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, you should try this. I think it sounds really good. Um, yeah, I kind of lack when it comes to desserts. I'm gonna be honest. I just usually have like a pint of gelato or something in the freezer. And just have some gelato, or we'll get gelato from somewhere, or we'll go and get custard or something like that.
Very nice. So, you loving to cook, where do you think I mean, is organic food really important for you? You talked about healthy farmers market. Where do you shop for the food that you use on a general basis? I mean, even beef has got so many antibiotics and so many bad stuff in it these days that uh, is there a specific
Yeah.
you buy from a butcher? Do you go to the farmer's market to get your vegetables? Are you very specific? Does it need to be organic? Because all these things are very important for me, and I think for a lot of people, because it does show, um, you know, with all the preservatives that you talked about and all those kind of things, I use very few times canned food in my life. I make everything from scratch. So that part of life is really important to me. And I would like to hear your take on that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I've been about that for a while, but I've really been pushing for that. Um like we just went to the grocery store. I made some omelets and stuff for breakfast this morning. But I found that they have this, like, you have to pay a $2 deposit for this milk and a glass bottle and this orange juice. I haven't tried their milk, but I've had the orange juice, and it just, I don't know, it really just tastes so much better out of that glass bottle. Because, you know, the thing with the plastics too, you have to watch out that there's none of that I forget what it is, like BPA or something. Like, you have to watch out with some of the plastics that you put your food in, and then when you warm it up, like, it'll get those chemicals on there too. It's kind of scary when it comes to that. But yeah, and I was just telling my husband that I said, man, I can't wait till the farmers market start up, because here in Wisconsin, it's hard to get fresh vegetables and fresh things like that. During the winter time, because it gets really cold here. We can't have that. But yeah, I'm like, I can't wait for that so I can get like fresh vegetables. Because, you know, that's another thing too. I grew my own tomatoes once, and I don't know if like you like tomatoes, you get them from the store, like they're good, but like when you grow your own tomatoes and you have them, like just take one and like cut it in half and eat it, because I can eat tomatoes like that too. But when you taste that, like there's just something about that that just like opens up your mind. You're just like, wow, that tastes so good. That tastes so much better. Why does this taste so much better? Because and I don't put anything on there. I'm finding these things, these hacks that people are talking about, like, oh, grow this next to your tomatoes or grow this next to something, and it'll keep those bugs away from your tomatoes, and it'll keep these kind of bugs away from there. Grow mint there because it'll help to chew things away, or you know, like that. So I'm like, because I have a spot in my backyard that I want to do with, where I can like grow some vegetables and stuff like that for myself too, in addition to like supporting the farmers markets. But yeah, I really am about, like, I really want to have fresh and cook with fresh ingredients, because not only does it like taste better, but I'm pretty sure that I've seen studies. I can't really pinpoint one right now, but there's studies about how the like the processed foods and stuff, how that affects our brains, especially like having too much sugar. That's so hard to get off of. Like that's a really addictive thing for people. So I try really hard to always eat as best as I can, because you know, and that's another thing too. I was talking to somebody about that, about when it comes to like eating fresh and picking things like that, making food. And people are like, you know, well, it's so much more expensive that way. I'm like, that's true. And I understand that too. Like, the fact of, so I go to Sendix to get, if I do get ground beef, because they have, I think it's like the kind of farmer to market type thing where they make sure that it's, you know, the cows aren't over ingested in all of that stuff, because boy, that's just something else to hear about how they treat the animals. I'm not okay with that. And then like the eggs, I always end up trying to, I found a few like farmers or like people that grow have chickens and sell eggs, and I'll just get those small batches and do eggs that way, even though it's a little bit more expensive. I just thank God that I'm lucky that I'm able to buy that, because you know, not everybody can do that. It's just terrible how expensive good food is for us, because we could be so much healthier and so much better if we could eat that good food, like mind, body, and soul. If we could eat more nourishing stuff versus like just going into the store and then getting that cheap stuff. But you know, I don't shame anybody for that. I understand, hey, you know, look, if that's what you got to do to make your, you know, make your dollar stretch and eat, then that's what you got to do. But I say try to like those samples of what I've made to see that, and just kind of encourage, like, you know, try maybe one thing, maybe just one fresh ingredient if you can. It's okay if you can do it all, because you know, I don't know, I don't think that would be right for me to make other people feel bad for not being able to afford that. Because you know, when you have a family of, you know, like 4 kids, and then there's like 6 people, that's a lot to, because those little grass-fed beef things that are like a pound, I think those can be like $10. And since it's just me and my husband, it's okay. But you know, like I said, a family of 5 or something like that, that's a lot for some people. So I never want people to feel bad about that, but just kind of think about like, hey, is there a way that you can maybe switch things up? Start to think about it, or maybe just drink water, you know, drink more water at the very least, drink more water.
Yeah, I agree with you. So we have a little bit of time left, and I want to ask you a question. If you can be a superfood hero, which hero would you be in the end as a food group?
You mean like
Yeah,
what I
I
would
mean,
be able to give out,
uh,
like
if
as a
you were
superhero?
a superfood, I got people that said I want to be avocado because they're so diverse, or I want to be olive oil because I love it. It's a healthy way of cooking. I had somebody that said they want to be a grape. It's very interesting. So if you had to be a superfood, a raspberry or a blueberry, which is an antioxidant or whatever, what would you be?
That's a good question. Because I know there are a lot of good superfoods out there that work. I'm trying to think. Okay, so right away I thought of a spice, but I'm like, what kind of spice? Um, Maybe
Turmeric.
like turmeric,
Yeah.
because I know turmeric is really good. There's a lot of good benefits with that. I guess that's what I would pick.
Turmeric. I love turmeric root. I use it a lot. Turmeric is an amazing spice to use in any food, in any case. So, yes, I even make smoothies with turmeric, believe it or not. It makes a really good smoothie. Um, You know what, Olivia, it's been so great to have you on the show. And I want to ask you, how do you see food connecting everything in your life? I know, I mean, for me, food is mind, body, and soul. It's the way I feed it, the way people make me feel, the connection, social, non-social, feeding people in many ways because we can feed our soul and our body and everything with food. So, in your life, how do you see that?
I see the connection with food because with that in that aspect, when I think about it in those terms, how like when people are like, that term hangry or something like that, and it's hard to get along with somebody. But if you're sitting down with somebody and there's a really good meal, it smells good and it looks good, and then you kind of start eating it and you start to feel good. There's something about eating a good meal that makes you feel good and then makes you open up, and you feel a lot more talkative and you can talk things out. And that's just the amazing thing with the power of a good meal, to get people to open up and have dialogue, which is really good because communication is so important
You,
to solve problems and get through it past anything.
you're right. Food has got amazing connections, and we as human beings forget that food is it feeds everything in your life. It feeds the cells, it feeds your brain, it feeds your body, it feeds your soul. It connects you on a social basis because what do you do when you have a birthday party? You eat. What do you do if you want to socialize with people? You eat. It's in every way it connects us. It's been a privilege having you on the show this morning, and I know that you dream about um, doing what Guy Fieri does and traveling the country and just eat and talk about food all the time. And I hope that dream becomes something something of a reality for you in the future. And I'm going to keep my eye open to see Olivia Blain traveling the world and talking about food to people. And it's a wonderful way of connecting life in general. Thank you so much, Olivia, for coming and sharing your morning with us.
Thank you so much. I really had fun. I appreciate being on here. I always love talking about food.
We all do.